Harlem Renaissance, also known as the New Negro Movement, rose in the early 20s in the Harlem neighborhood located in New York as a development where the African American communities experienced their own cultural, social, and artistic explosion. During the years of 1910 and 1920, migrating to the South to this community with inspirational leaders was collectively a popular decision. One sincere neighborhood many African Americans moved to after seeing a profitable opportunity was Harlem. This specific neighborhood was built with the intention of only providing homes for the upper-class Caucasian community. Soon after, a few middle-class African-American families moved into a few homes in the neighborhood, unintentionally pushing out the Caucasian community until the entire neighborhood was submerged with African Americans. After the migration, many African American poets saw the opportunity to shift the results in the Black Pride movement, in which they were determined to explore their cultural identity. But a more outstanding element that boomed the Harlem Renaissance was their music. During this era, jazz became an important musical element in which helped inspired many African Americans to emotionally and physically express themselves. Famous celebrities such as Louis Armstrong, Duke Ellington, Bessie Smith, and many others gave people the feel to come together to dance and to express themselves, giving people in all the arts an opportunity to boom. The African American actors were also praised in the sense of finally being able to be a part of the musical plays, the big screen, as well as Broadway, including the famous Josephine Baker. While in the midst of conveying themselves, many African American politically had many activists that sought to end the Jim Crow mindset.
The Harlem Renaissance consisted of a lot of African American culture. It consisted of new forms of music, new dances, art, and poetry. Jazz was also very popular during this time. It became known as the Jazz Age. Some of the most important people during the Harlem Renaissance were Langston Hughes. He was considered the most important during the Harlem Renaissance. He was a very famous poet and was considered among the greatest poets in the U.S. Another person was Louis Armstrong. He was the most popular musician during the Harlem Renaissance. He was considered among the greatest of artists in jazz history. He also made jazz very popular. There was also W.E.B. Du Bois. He was a famous writer. Josephine Baker was a singer and a dancer. Another famous musician was Duke Ellington. A famous author during the Harlem Renaissance was Zora Neale. There was many more artists during the Harlem Renaissance, but these were some of the most important. The Cotton Club was very popular for many other famous artists to attend to. No matter what race, the arts of the Harlem Renaissance was an attraction to everybody. Unfortunately, the start of the end of the Harlem Renaissance began with the stock market, and officially ended no thanks to the Prohibition in 1933. By this time, people had moved on trying to make use in their life in the sense of survival in terms of finding jobs. Due to many refugees also seeking jobs in the North, as well as the many riots that broke out due to discrimination, therefore becoming the end of the Harlem Renaissance and the beginning of a new movement.